I would assume that when we are saying that introducing open source in any aspect of the academic institutions practices, it still can be called sort of an innovation. Does it make it easier to do that and come up with new ideas, new courses, or is it still a lot of process and procedural steps to get through?
I think it really is like an amazing platform for bringing people together to innovate, like you were saying. For instance, our office hosted a symposium that grew out of like a prior, more research-focused open source symposium. And it's a fairly intimate event, but like, I mean, just so many amazing conversations about like what could the future of this look like? What could the future of that look like? Like right now we're trying to work with other University of California schools to have more of like a network of OSPOs, like sort of growing and collaborating. That feels very unique to a large system of R1, like research universities. I think also like really great conversations about how could there be an academic research conference to maximize like incentives and credit that people as academics get in this space. So I think it is like a really great platform for having those conversations and connecting with people, like for sure in terms of innovation. But I do think it also just takes time, like, and especially compared to thinking about how quick things can move in like industry, like from what I've heard, I've not worked extensively in industry. Things just take time, like grant cycles, applying for funding, having things peer reviewed. It's a lot of paperwork. Even if everyone like agrees that something should happen, like there's still.
I've been to an event, it's called MOSE, and I think there was a whole track kind of dedicated to academia. I watched a few sessions where people were talking about just how rigid some of the processes are and how long it takes to like introduce a new course into the curriculum, like finding the resources to develop the course, doing all the paperwork, getting approval, making sure that it's even doable. So in that sense, kind of coming up with the idea that, oh, open source is great and our students could be contributing, it still sounds like that it could be like years down the road to actually make that happen. So I was also kind of wondering if you have the experience or if you know how tough that might have been in your institution to push these things through, or at least get it started, have that OSPO, and then being able to take next steps and saying that I'm building a mentorship program that is now supported by the faculty, as opposed to being constantly asked, why are you even trying to do this?
Yeah, I think one interesting thing to your like question about like innovation is that I've actually seen these constraints that people have from their various departments. Although it hasn't been my own experience, I was like very enthusiastically supported. I've heard like very inspiring stories of faculty like constructively subverting like the restrictions of their institution to get open source in the curriculum, which I just think is incredible. So I think and through these sort of smaller like in-person gatherings at conferences, people have these just awesome stories about like, oh, I was assigned to teach a class on this, and like here's how I actually wove open source into the entire curriculum, because I think it's so important that students have that exposure. So there is like some really interesting stuff kind of under the radar happening there, I think. And yeah, I think like as far as the OSPO stuff, like I think I really like showed up to the party once it was happening at UCSD. Like lots of people did like a lot of work before my time. So I feel like I can't fully speak to like what went into that, other than I know that it was really a long labor over many years of developing first our Center for Research on Open Source Software and sort of nurturing our like a research center. And then, our director and executive director really building out like the value, over time of open source to both the university and to funders like the Sloan Foundation, who's really funded our conceptualization as an OSPO. So yeah, it's a big effort. It's a big effort.
And I think that melding has to happen and continue to happen in earnest, right? I mean, as I look at the future of computing, open source continues to play a huge role. Security is a huge topic. AI is a huge topic. Both tools, models, input, output, what that looks like from an open source standpoint, what that looks like from a collaborative development standpoint, right? The expense of some of these models, being able to build upon others' work is really critical. And all of these are, rapidly advancing topics in a space that, like you said, it's actually still in the fringe. Open source is still in the fringe from an academic exposure standpoint. It takes, if not Herculean efforts, at least a significant effort of faculty like you to make sure that the student body is exposed and what value that ecosystem can bring to the students, right? And so for me, I see that there should be a lot of overlap. There should be a lot of interaction, and it doesn't happen at the pace that it should, partly because open source is still kind of, it is still a fringe topic in academia. But anyway, just that point, it's just, things do move so rapidly, and academia, should be, part of that research channel, right, for what is happening new. And because so much of it is leveraged in open source, I think we would be better off if academia actually had it more as part of their core curricula.